coronavirus germs of two and only two sexes. This is the ticker guy. Oh boy, the told you so flag is going up. I wish I could actually fly it during the podcast, but I can't because it's a GIF. And my production software doesn't know how to deal with that and do the little animation thing. So, sorry. UPMC doctor in Pittsburgh, Dr. Donald Yealy, says, I quote, a UPMC doctor on Thursday made a case the death rate for people infected with the new coronavirus is as low as 0.25%, far lower than the mortality rates of 2 to 4% or even higher cited in the early days of the pandemic. By the way, the seasonal flu is approximately 0.1%, 0.1 to 0.15. So we are talking about a bug that is a little more deadly than the seasonal flu, about twice. But it is not a reason to hide under the desk. It simply is not. And what he says, I continue, we've learned that far more people have been exposed to the infection without any knowledge of it that makes the overall death rate much lower, says Yealy, who is UPMC's chair of emergency medicine. What have I been saying now since March? That the claims that we were having about all of this, oh, it is the end of the world as we know it. We must lock down. We must restrict everyone's freedoms. We must turn off the economy. We must do all of these destructive things. Oh, by the way, if you have colon cancer and you're feeling kind of weird, we can't screen you because that's not considered emergency medicine. We'll get to you. We'll get to you. Maybe after the tumor has attached itself to your liver and now you are going to die instead of what was a manageable cancer. You think that's the only one? How many men had prostate cancer that was not caught is now metastatic prostate cancer, which is almost universally fatal? And on and on and on. I have been saying this consistently, that the math did not add up on this. And it is not, ladies and gentlemen, about whether or not you happen to be a epidemiologist, or you happen to be a doctor, or you happen to have all sorts of advanced letters and medical degrees. No. What this is really about is whether or not you were smoking bong hits in high school during math class. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You were doing the bongs in middle school. In high school, you shifted to mainlining heroin. Because, you got to be that dumb. Or just not care. Mask on! Yeah, like Pandora. We don't want anyone dead today in my report. Really? For a bug that, when you get down to it, is a flu. A bad flu. A very bad flu. One that, interestingly enough, doesn't kill young children. And the regular flu does, on a fairly regular basis. Every death is tragic, at least for the person who dies, and usually for the people who love them. But death comes to all of us, whether we want it to or not. It's not avoidable. The question isn't, are you going to die? Because the answer is yes. The question is, what we do is what we are doing today. Is it reasonable? Is it measured? Does it have any basis in reality? And the answer is no. Now we have, we'll slowly reopen the economy. Well, the same crap going on in Tennessee that we got up in Sevier, up there. Same thing down in Florida. Governor DeSantis. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to go real slow and be real measured. A bar, your restaurant can open at 25% capacity or whatever. Same thing, Tennessee. Because, that governor there, boy, he's got to be careful. Really? About what? About what amounts to a scam? I mean, look, in January and February when this thing first got started, we have every reason to believe it was potentially going to be really bad. Yeah. And oh, by the way, in early March, was what they did justifiable based upon, by the way, the lies told by the Chinese? The lies. Yeah, that was reasonable too. Why? Because the data really did look a whole lot different then. And I can make the argument that original 15 days, it actually did make sense. But beyond that point, no. We destroyed the American economy, ladies and gentlemen, because we're a bunch of scaredy cats. We're hiding under our desk from Sasquatch. That's right. We are believing in Bigfoot. That's what this is at this point. And it's a religion. Gee, where have I seen that before? The sea level is going to come up by tens of feet. By God, my waterfront property that I owned in wonderful sunny Florida, why, it was going to be 5 feet underwater. By the way, my base elevation there was a little right around 6 feet, a little bit more. Okay. This, by the way, at the time qualified me for preferred flood insurance rates. Why? Because there's only about a 1 foot tidal range, and that's from the high water point. And so, short of an end, because of the way it was pointed, it was favored from a wind and surge exposure from potential hurricane risk, which means that it was very unlikely to flood. And then we had a really, really bad storm, Ivan. Very bad. And it didn't flood. Got real close. But it didn't flood. And so, gee, I guess those predictions were right. But all the screaming Karens, remember? An inconvenient truth. Oh, very inconvenient. Yeah, by the same scientists with all these letters after their names and thousands of them. By God, if we do not do something about this, your house is going to be underwater. Well, when I bought the house, I put a dock in. By the way, the permits, you need a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. You need a permit from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And then you have to have an actual building permit from the county. Well, I can see the building permit. That makes some sense. Okay. The other two are, pain in the butt. The ACOE one comes back whenever they feel like returning it to you. Not unusual for it to take several months. Pardon me, I am having my coffee as usual. And so I build it. I have the dock building people come out, they put it in, and I put pilings in because the risk of having the pilings lifted during a severe storm, aka hurricane, is very real in Florida. And so I spent the extra money to have all the pilings pilocks so that wouldn't happen. Why? Because you can't buy insurance on a dock. It's seaward of the mean water line. And that is normally the way that works. All right? You just can't buy insurance. Your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover it. It's seaward of the high water line. Period. Okay. So that's all fine and well. So I have my dock, but I know exactly where the water line is on the dock. 20 years go by. And the sea level was supposed to have come up by about a foot by now, roughly. And remember that the oceans, ladies and gentlemen, are all connected together, okay? Gulf of Mexico is connected to the Atlantic Ocean, which is connected to the Pacific Ocean. All these oceans are all connected together. And so as a result, if you can run this experiment, you can take 2 buckets of water, you can put a piece of tubing between them with fittings on both ends, and you pour water in one bucket, and the other bucket will rise to the same level. The one that you poured in will go down a little bit. The one that you did not put it in will go up a little bit until they're even. Why? Because that's how the world works. It's basic principles of fluid dynamics. You got Archimedes. If you put you put a boat in there, right? You got all these different. These are physical laws. Okay, they're not suggestions. And guess what? Over all those years, do you know how much change in the water line there was? Basically 0. Maybe an inch. Maybe. There is about a 1-foot tidal range, so from high to low. And then there's a weird shift that happens in the winter and the summer. The winter, the tidal range is lower every year. And the shift that happens is very abrupt, too. You'd think it would happen, over the space of a month or 2 months or 3 months. It would be slow and gradual. It doesn't work that way. Never quite figured out why that is, but that's just the way it is. But where's the flood? Well, it never happened. It never happened. And in fact, the little dune that I left the seagrass in, I didn't cut it because I kind of like it. It's pretty. And in addition to that, it provides erosion protection, which is actually kind of important because we get those things called storms. And so I didn't cut it. Well, guess what? That grass line hasn't moved in 20 years. So obviously these people were full of dark, smelly, fecal material, probably laden with coronavirus. We got the same thing going on here. Don't get me wrong, if this thing gets you, it's bad news. But then again, folks, for perspective, the flu kills about 60,000 people a year. Hospital-acquired infections. You go into the hospital to have something done, to have something fixed. They give you an infection you didn't already have. That kills 100,000 people each and every year. Medical errors in general, of which I'm sure this is a part, kill 300,000 to 400,000 people a year. Of course, they don't count those all neat and lined up. We don't have a screaming headline every single day about the number of people killed by hospital-acquired infections. And yet, on a run rate basis, it's getting up there, ain't it? You take that in the medical errors, well, you know what? We're about in the same area. So how come we don't have a rolling daily total? Hospital-acquired infections and medical error deaths in Illinois, in Tennessee, in New York, in Florida, every single day. Where's the chyron on the bottom of the screen on CNN? Because about as many people die from that as die from coronavirus. And you know what the difference is? If you were to extrapolate out over a whole year and make it way worse than it has been. And you know what happens every year? But where is it? Oh, no. The sacred cows, we can't touch them. And by the way, every one of those deaths, unlike coronavirus, which is a virus after all, every one of those deaths is preventable. By people not doing stupid things. Take off your masks. Tell the governors and all the other crazies to go stick it. We destroyed our economy for an imaginary boogeyman. Yes, it is a bad bug. The virus itself is real. It makes people sick. Some of them die. But when you get down to it, the math keeps coming in, and it all keeps coming in the same place. That this thing is maybe twice as bad as the flu. Not 100 times or 1,000 times as bad. It's not SARS. It's not MERS. It's not Marburg. It's not cholera, for crying out loud. It doesn't even register on the scale of global pandemics that have been murderous SOBs. It's a bad flu bug. And it's going to be with us for a very long time. Why? because that's how respiratory viruses work. Instead of hiding under your desk thinking that, oh, I got to prevent myself from getting it, you're going to get it. The odds are very high. You're eventually going to get it. And you know what? Unless you're in one of those special high-risk categories, the odds are you're going to be just fine. Yeah, you might get sick. Then again, you might not. You might not even get the sniffles. But if you get sick, you'll probably be just fine, just like you do when you get the flu. For those people, for those few, on a comparative basis, where it doesn't happen, and it really goes downhill and is sad, I'm really sorry. But screaming about this, and especially when you're talking about comorbidities that are in your control, you really do now know, folks, what those are, okay? If you want to be a fat SOB, stuff your pie hole, be like the screaming Karens, and, oh my God, oh, so woe is me. Well, you know what? Think about that pizza. Think about getting off the couch. Think about doing a little physical work, a little physical labor, you know, whether it's running, walking, treadmilling, biking, whatevering. Get the fast carbs out of your diet. Yesterday, I'm listening to Kellogg's CEO talking about the wonderful quarter they had, and one of the CNBS hosts is prattling on about how they have cereal for dinner. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, so heart attack in a box. And on top of that, you make yourself more susceptible to COVID because, well, that's a fast carbohydrate. And, gee, what does that potentiate? Obesity and diabetes, two of the things that we know are really bad news when it comes to this virus. So let me see. We have a bad respiratory virus going around. It kills some percentage of the people. And I think what I will do today is make myself more susceptible. Are you out of your mind? Well, apparently people are. Enough for today. I'm your ticker guy.